I don't think I've ever been more conflicted on a movie in my entire life. Hey guys, Caleb here from CDBS Studios, and it is finally time for me to review a brand new movie coming out instead of going back and reviewing old movies like I did for most of September. Yay! And this movie was one that I was really excited for, as Tron Ares, if some of you remember, was actually on my most anticipated movies of 2025 list back in January, and this is one of the last movies of the year that is actually on that list. I think there's only two more coming out later this year that are on the list. So this film was one that I was really excited for, and this movie I have some very conflicting opinions on. And it really made it hard for me to just like put down all my feelings for this review because I'm really conflicted. And I do also just want to start this by setting up the expectations I had for this film. Pre watching Tron Ares, I went ahead and went back and watched the original Tron and Tron Legacy. And the Tron franchise has always been known for having stellar visuals and having some very interesting characters and this whole rivalry set between the Flynn family and the Dellinger family. And I will just say that from my rewatch, I will admit I'm not the hugest fan of the original Tron. I think it's a good movie and it has some great story elements and some good characters, but the CGI does not hold up in the slightest. While on the flip side, Tron Legacy is one of my is a really great film. It pushes the VFX that you can do with the Tron franchise, and it looks phenomenal, and it's just beautiful. As meanwhile, the characters are great, there's a great score, and Tron Legacy is such a huge, massive leap in quality from the original. So I went into Tron Ares being very excited to see how they were going to take what they did in Tron Legacy and push it further for this movie. Spoiler alert, they didn't do that. So, now I'm going to take you guys through why I think Tron Ares is one of the most conflicting films of 2025. Okay, so you guys know I usually like to start these reviews kind of positive, but I'm just going to get this out of the way right now. The story is kind of my main negative with the film. The pacing in this movie is really lopsided for some reason, where pretty much almost nothing of note happens in like the first hour of this movie. Like, it's very boring in the first hour, and they push like all the interesting concepts and fight sequences and that to the back hour. So this movie can get really boring for some reason, and it feels like they didn't know what they wanted to do for that first hour, so the pacing is really like choppy for some reason. I don't know why it's like that. And many of the characters in this movie are kind of underwritten and barely developed. Like, there's so many characters in this movie that you could cut with like barely any like consequence. Basically, pretty much all of the human characters that are like the sidekicks are basically underdeveloped and are just there to be, the programmers who can break into the grid in the final battle for some reason. Even some of the main characters are underwritten. I don't think Ares is written as well as they wanted him to be. Even the main characters like Dellinger and of course Greta Lee's character are characters I think could have been so interesting, but they don't do anything interesting with the writing of those characters, which is kind of weird, as it feels like I'm basically just not even watching characters. It's like I'm watching like archetypes that you stuck in this movie to get me from scene to scene, which is a little annoying. And I alluded to this a little bit in the intro, but this movie's story is more of a sequel to the original Tron than it is to Tron Legacy. Like, a mild spoiler in case you don't, in case you want to know, that in the first 5 minutes of this movie tells us that the son and Cora from Tron Legacy have disappeared from the company for personal reasons and are nowhere to be found, leading to our new characters taking over the company. So within the first 5 minutes of this movie, they're basically saying Tron Legacy does not matter, and this movie's more trying to parody the original Tron. And the only reference to Tron Legacy they have for the entire rest of the movie is the laser that Ares used to uses to get out of the grid in the final act is the one in the Flynn arcade from Tron Legacy. Like, that's the only reference to Tron Legacy in the whole film, which is just feels so weird. And as a result, I mentioned I'm not the hugest fan of the original Tron, so that kind of is not great for me. And this movie's story is kind of, in a way, weird, as the whole story is about an AI coming to the real world from the grid, and it's kind of it's kind of gaining consciousness and kind of trying to fight back against its programming, which it's like, yeah, like we haven't gotten an AI story fighting itself in the last year. Megan 2.0 and Companion are literally both about that. So I don't know what they thought they were doing, especially when they hit you over the head with this. And the thing that makes this movie also even more annoyed for me personally is that they don't even finish the movie, it feels like, because the ending of this movie is left open-ended and ambiguous, that then leads into a post-credit scene that basically just teases another sequel. Like, it feels like they didn't finish this movie for some reason, which I'm not gonna say that I don't like that. I mean, most of you'll know that I'm a huge fan of Marvel movies, and they kind of do the same thing, but usually they finish the movie and the post-credit scene is teasing what they're gonna do next with the film, which this movie feels like they didn't finish the story, which feels very off for some reason, and I'm not the hugest fan of that. So yeah, that's my main negative on this film, is that the story feels very, like, unrefined and feels like a very almost like first or second draft of it. And I don't like that they kind of made this more of a sequel to Tron than Tron Legacy, but I don't know what it is. But anyway, that's my main thoughts on the story. Now let's jump into the actually positive things I think about this movie. Alright, so you guys probably knew this was going to be a section in the video, but the VFX of the Tron movies is basically what these movies are known for. Even though I kind of said in the intro that I think the VFX of Tron, the original, have aged kind of poorly, you still gotta understand that those were groundbreaking when the film came out. I mean, if you've seen any documentaries on the behind the scenes of Tron, you know that they pushed what they could do with computer graphics in that movie. And even though they didn't age super well, they're still really solid for what the movie is asking for. And then the visuals of Tron Legacy are gorgeous. The grid looks so good in that movie, and it's probably one of the greatest aspects of that movie, and it just looks amazing. Tron Ares keeps up this trend by having such a great looking visuals. In fact, this might be the best looking of the three Tron movies, as the fight sequences are done really solidly with the visuals, with the discs, the ID discs, and all of the different fight sequences, especially once they eventually bring in the light jets and the light cycles, which are great visually looking in this movie. I think the grid in this movie has never looked better. Like, I love the look of the grid in this movie, especially as we venture into Dellinger's grid, which is way more dark and dingy than Flynn's grid, which I think is a really great contrast. Even the OG grid we visit in this movie is really visually amazing. I love the visuals of this movie, and the VFX are worth it if you're willing to go see this on the big screen, as they really do make up for it. And that's just one of the main things I love about this movie, is that it just looks amazing. And much like Tron Legacy, I think this movie's going to age beautifully when it comes to the VFX, unless we make some big groundbreaking discovery in the next 3 years, but I doubt we are going to do it. I mean, have you seen how we've gone backwards since Davy Jones and Dead Man's Chest? Anyway, the visuals of this movie are a really good highlight, and that's great because they're kind of what Tron is known for, so at least they got that right, which I can admit. So, the visuals are phenomenal. Probably one of the greatest aspects of the whole movie for me. They were just that good. And you already know I gotta talk about the score. The score Daft Punk did for Tron Legacy is one of the greatest highlights of that movie. Daft Punk was able to nail a great score for that movie, and honestly, so many of those tracks have found their way onto my playlist that I play in the background while just working on stuff. Like, Daft Punk killed it with that score. And unfortunately, Daft Punk didn't return to do Tron Ares, but in return, they got Nine Inch Nails to do the score. And oh my, Nine Inch Nails is able to meet and even sometimes exceed Daft Punk's score. There's so many compositions in this movie that sound amazing, and they hook you in with the action and the story that you're watching. And honestly, so many of the tracks from this soundtrack that Nine Inch Nails did, I've already found them on my playlist, and I'm already listening to them while I'm working on stuff. And I just saw this movie last weekend. Like, that's how fast these songs made it onto there, because they really just are that good. Nine Inch Nails is able to kill the score, and I guess if Disney was unable to get Daft Punk back to do the score, Nine Inch Nails is a pretty solid replacement. And I'm just happy that they got someone great like that to do the score instead of trying to figure out some random other thing to do, or just reusing Daft Punk's score. So anyway, love the Nine Inch Nails score. It is a very big highlight of this movie, and it paired with the visuals is enough to kind of save this movie from being a really boring snooze fest, I'm going to say. So now that I've kind of brought up my points, you can probably see why I'm very conflicted on this movie, as this movie has some really high positives, like the score and the VFX, but then on the other side, that can only take the movie so far because the story is really weak, which I hate to say that about this movie, and that's kind of why I'm so conflicted on it, because I don't really think the story is good, but I think the visuals and the score are phenomenal, which really makes it hard for me to rate this in my mind. I ended up landing on a 4 out of 10 for this movie, as, again, I don't think this movie is bad, it's just not great, which sucks because I was so excited for this movie, and you can tell that from my excitement I expressed back in January for this movie, that I was really hoping this movie would be on the level of Tron Legacy. Unfortunately, this movie is probably around the same level for me as the original Tron, as this movie has the VFX and the score, while Tron has the story. So these two are kind of like tied in my mind for Tron, and Tron Legacy is still the clear best, but either way, this is still a solid movie, and if you want to go see it, I totally would recommend it, if for the visual effects and the score alone. But on the same time, if you're going to skip this one because of the story being a little weak, that totally is understandable as well, as it's kind of a really boring movie for the first hour before it kind of gets good in the back half. So anyway, that's my thoughts on Tron Ares as a whole, and I'm genuinely curious, what did you think of Tron Ares if you have seen it? Leave your thoughts in the comments down below, maybe we can get a conversation going. Without further ado, though, thank you guys all very much for watching this video, and hope to see you guys all in the next one. Bye, guys!